I was always an outside person. I would be outside in the woods when my family stayed inside glued to the TV screen. Then I would come inside before 6 p.m. to eat. We lived in a safe neighborhood, so my parents had no problem with me going outside, spending countless hours in the woods, and I was very independent for a 14-year-old. Yes, I admit I was kind of a nerd for spending my free time in the woods, but who could blame me when we lived by seemingly endless miles of woodland? I usually set out for the woods at 3 p.m. for my journeys, and on some occasions, I would leave at 2 p.m. However, tomorrow, I was planning to leave at 1 a.m. to go the deepest I have ever went into the woods. I would pack a lunch and tell my parents I was leaving. Then my journey would begin. I planned to walk for 2.5 hours into the woods. Then I would spend the other 2.5 hours to walk back. The next day, I woke up to my alarm at 7 a.m. I told my parents my plan, and the general consent was I could go, but I had to be safe. I was walking out the door at 1 a.m. Everything was going as planned. I loved the sound of the crunching leaves and sticks under me once I got into the woods. It was so satisfying once your foot fell on the woods ground. I loved that sound. There was just something special about it. I started to get creeped out when I was at least a quarter mile out. I just felt like something bad was going to happen every second. Things also started to get more quiet than usual. I shrugged these thoughts off as paranoia. However, they did not go away, and the thoughts were more relevant once I went deeper into the woods. I was going to call it off, but then I heard something. It sounded like a human, and it was very distinct. I was creeped out. Very creeped out. I was shaking. Then I hid behind trees. Meanwhile, I heard more muffled, unintelligible words. I was petrified in fear. I was so afraid, and I wished I would have never came into these woods in the first place. Soon, I heard footsteps coming near me. I held my breath. I was as quiet as possible while shaking in fear. I heard more crunching of leaves and sticks from footsteps. Now I hated this sound. Every step was more delayed and loud than the next. He was getting closer to me. I eventually decided to run and began to scream once I saw an old, nude man covered in blood walking towards me. I began to run the fastest I ever had. I nearly puked while running at this speed. I also started to get dizzy. Soon when I was running, I stupidly tripped on a stick. I screamed, "Shit!" and then fell on the ground, head on. It hurt so bad, I then desperately tried to move, but I couldn't. All I could do was lay there. Then I heard those terrifying crunches of sticks and leaves. He followed me, and I no longer loved these sounds. I hated them. Then I saw the man from the distance. I heard every step of the man. He was not even walking fast, but he was taking his time. He eventually got to me and leaned over me with a knife. With one more failed attempt to move, I accepted my fate. I didn't scream when he shoved a knife in his hand through my throat. I laughed, because once the knife got to my spine, I heard those beloved sounds of crunching and cracking like leaves and sticks, and that would be the last sound I would ever hear.
Number 2.
Okay, I was about 6 at the time. I was spending the night at a friend's house because it was her 7th birthday. So we were doing the usual stuff for us, discussing Pokemon and who was the cutest anime girl. It was around 11 p.m. and we turned off the lights, opened the curtains so we could see the stars, and settled in for bed. I'm an insomniac, so I didn't fall asleep right away. I did a little after, but I was abruptly awoken by my friend shaking me. I groaned and woke up. Stormy? I saw a demon walking through the hallway. He had something that was metal. It was all sparkly in the moonlight. She whispered in fear. I was worried because I too thought it was in fact a demon. We grabbed our pillows and crept down the halls. We finally caught up with them in the kitchen. There was a person in the china cabinet, and he was grabbing all of it. He passed it to the other guy and went outside. Once they spotted us, they smirked, walking up to us. Both of us were frozen in fear. We even dropped our pillows as they approached us, as the tall, thinner one picked us up by our arms.
"What should we do with the cuties?"
The shorter one said in a seductive tone. He got so close to me, I could smell his breath.
"I say we keep them. They might be of some use,"
the thin one said, setting us down but holding us by our hair. We both had really long hair. Mine went down to my thigh and my friend's went down to her bum. It hurt like hell when someone pulled out our hair, so we sat still. The shorter one came back after a couple of minutes with a roll of duct tape, some rope, and a couple bandanas. The tall guy let go of us and forced each other back to back as the shorter guy tied us up, put duct tape over our mouths, and tied the bandanas over our eyes. We heard their footsteps leave to the china cabinet as they resumed taking my friend's family stuff. All my friend and I could do was stay there and cry. After what felt like an eternity, we heard a loud crash and some footsteps running into the kitchen. "Hey, what the hell are you doing here?" My friend's older brother yelled. I heard gunshots and more feet running in. It stopped as I heard something hit the floor, hard. My friend's older brother untied us both, and once he had that done, he picked us up as we cried into a shirt. My friend's dad had shot a bullet into both of the guys' legs. Her mom called the police, and they came in record time. They got them arrested. Apparently both of them were both child sex offenders and had been breaking into people's homes for the past 3 months. That night, we stayed in her brother's room and made sure to be as close to him as possible. If one of those men didn't slip up, I am scared to think of what would have been me and my friend's fates. It's been almost 10 years. I still have nightmares. For the longest time when I was alone with a boy that wasn't my friend's brother or my brother, I would cower in fear, and for the longest time, I could not sleep alone. Just please, if you think you see someone in the night, either call the police, get a gun, or wake up your parents.
Number 3.
This happened when I was 12 years old. I was a very thin, frail child that looked younger than I was. So yeah, late bloomer you could say. I come from a semi-suburb in southeast Florida. I lived with my grandparents at the time because my piece of crap mom was a drug addict. This comes with the story, and you'll know why I can't stand her. Anyway, one day I was in my bedroom watching TV. It was summer, so being a typical teenage girl, I spent most summers watching reruns of Gilligan's Island. I heard a knocking on my door. It was my own mother who just happened to be in town. She never came to visit, so I found this kind of odd. She rushed in and hugged me like it was Christmas or something. She smiled and that showed the remainder of her teeth that weren't rotted. She said she met this wonderful guy from a church service. He loved children. She told him about her favorite daughter that was smart, beautiful, and well matured for her age. I wasn't a dumb kid. I was smart. I could tell this was going nowhere decent in conversation. She pulled scams at churches before, so I really didn't think much of it. I was trying to tune her out. Then she startled me. "My friend from church wants to meet you. I told them you need new clothes for school and all of that." I began to freeze in shock, because I know what she was getting at. Because what kind of creep who isn't family or really isn't acquainted with a child wants to just take a young girl on a shopping spree? Yeah, red flags were waving frantically in my mind. It's not like I was a 5-year-old who was promised candy if I got into a car. I told her to back off, or I would tell my grandparents. She pleaded and pleaded, saying I was overreacting and that He had a daughter my age who would just love me. Then I got angrier and shouted, "If you don't get away from me, I'll punch you so hard I'll knock the rest of your teeth out." She's my mother and all, but I knew her intentions, and that man's was not just to get stuff I needed. She knew from this point that I was serious. She flew out of my room and out the door into a raggedy, jalopy old car. It was rusty and smoking. I can't remember the model, because I stared out my living room window, which showed my driveway the creep was parked. Church, Mr. Friendly, my ass. Then a week later, I was riding my bike a couple of blocks just to go for a ride, when I swore I had seen the same car my mother had arrived in with Mr. Creepo. It was a bearded, old but muscular looking guy. He saw me riding. He was parked near the stop sign I had to cross to get home. As I rode past him, he stared at me and grinned like he was getting thrilled just seeing me. I wanted to puke but kept riding till I got home. I was so terrified that I didn't leave the house until the following school year began. What the scary part is, my grandfather was talking to me and asked if I had seen anything out of the ordinary a few months ago. I asked why and he told me, "Well, a 9-year-old girl was abducted and still is not found. She lived a block from us. She disappeared a few months ago, around the same time I was bike riding." I don't know if it was him or not, but I think it's more of a coincidence. So thanks, Mom, for trying to sell me to a pervert for your habit. And thanks, Mr. Creepo, who scarred me for life.